Welcome back to Minds of America, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daniel Braile, and today I'm here with Matt Eagan, and we'll be discussing the impeachment trial and exactly what it will do for this country. So, the first thing I would like to discuss is the charges against the current president. We currently have two charges. They are abuse of power and obstruction of justice. I'd like to talk a little bit about that first charge, abuse of power, because it's very commonly used along with the second one. But that's the big one here. So, Matt, I'll let you start us off.
Yeah, and when you talk about abuse of power, it's been talked about throughout his entire presidency, dating back to pretty much the day he was inaugurated. And it's really, I don't want to say necessarily entirely baseless claim, but for the most part it's a baseless claim because every time he has so much as a slight misstep, you'll see an abuse of power claimed by someone from the Democratic base. For example, when you look back to the allegations of misappropriation of campaign funds, which was ultimately disappeared after a few weeks when that was in the news. They were trying to remove him from office from that with the Stormy Daniels incident.
Right.
And you look back to that and they said, oh, well, he was abusing his campaign funds. It was abuse of his power as a candidate. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of, it's a word that's thrown around and it's lost so much of its meaning, I feel, because it's just thrown around so much nowadays.
Right, but what we're talking about specifically here is that Ukraine call with their president. Specifically the fact, if we read the transcript, what happened was President Trump called up the Ukrainian president and was like, hey, I'd like you to do a favor, right?
Yeah.
Get dirt on Hunter Biden, basically. And what also happened, you can draw a connection to withholding of campaign funds. It's a quid pro quo. Now, quid pro quo stands for I'll give you this, you give me that, right? It's a common thing. It's a trade.
Yes.
But that's not what people should be arguing here. It's what was traded. It was withholding of over $400 million in military aid to Ukraine against their fight against Russia for exchange on dirt on a political adversary. Now that's the discussion here, and whether President Trump used his executive privilege and his abuse of power in order to get that information. Personally, I believe, yeah, he did kind of overstep the line there. You shouldn't, in any sort of circumstance, no matter who you are, no matter what party you are, gather any sort of dirt on your political adversary. It's just, it's immoral, it's wrong, and doing that is borderline dictatorship. It's something that dictators do.
See, I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration there when every political candidate, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, will gather dirt on their political adversary. You can go back to Hillary Clinton with her emails where a lot of that was gathering information on other people and just doing backdoor.
Was it on a political adversary?
It was gathering information on opponents, on just people in general. And
Which opponents?
And a lot of backdoor deals. And when you look at that, you saw people clamoring for her trial, which never came because she was protected by her own little crowd of people, which is an interesting point to bring up. But.
Right, but if you brought up the fact that they're protected by their own little cloud of people, impeachment nowadays is completely partisan. You see that the Republicans side with the Democrats. That's completely
wrong.
About
to say, hang on a minute, you got that one a little bit mixed up.
I jumped the gun there, I'll admit that. Republicans side a lot with the president. Democrats side a lot with, obviously, the articles of impeachment.
Well, that's a good point to bring up, the partisanship of it, because you'll have Democratic candidates now which are running completely on the grounds of, oh, we need to remove this person from office. You look at candidates here. I have it in an article here. If you'll just give me a second to find it. You'll have Senator Kamala Harris in the last debates, which, and this is an article from a few weeks ago, which was stating that she said, as a former persecutor, I know collusion, confession when I see it. He did in plain sight. He's given us the evidence. So this is before this went to trial. So when you look at this, you have these people who, as you mentioned, a completely partisan issue, who have turned it into a completely partisan issue, and have spun this into drawing a line before there's been any kind of trial, any kind of hearing on it, and it prevents any kind of a fair judgment in this.
I agree with you that it's entirely partisan and people are obviously turning it to their gain. That's what you do in politics. You turn everything to your gain. It's a common tactic used by every single politician. And speaking of partisanship, in the Federalist Papers, which were used to promote the Constitution before its ratification, the Founding Fathers argued that impeachment would be a completely partisan issue. They were entirely correct. You saw that with the Clinton impeachment. It was entirely partisan. It was just lying to Congress about having sexual affairs with Monica Lewinsky. Richard Nixon.
Well, we know he did.
Well, yeah, he
Naturally.
did, but that's not a crime in any way. The crime is he lied to Congress about it. He testified about it and said, no, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And then Republicans and people all around were like, he just lied about that because we found out that he did actually have sexual relations with that woman. But what's interesting about this one, with this impeachment, and I would like to talk about this for a little bit, is this is the, I think, first impeachment that has happened before a re-election.
Yes.
And that's interesting because it has an effect on the 2020 upcoming election. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that and those effects. You mentioned that Democratic candidates were spinning this to their gain. I believe Democrats wanted him out of office, not necessarily going out to support the impeachment proceedings. And even if they did, I mean, it's expected. Different people have their opinions. They can support the impeachments, especially because a lot of the people running right now are senators. Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren. They are partaking in the impeachment proceedings because they're in the Senate.
Yeah, but I feel like the problem that you have with that is not necessarily that they take place, and as a senator has to, is that's how the impeachment was set up by the founding fathers.
Yeah.
The problem that you have is that when they're campaigning, where such as Elizabeth Warren is raising money based on impeachment pledges and stating that Donald Trump is guilty, and she was doing that again from the onset when they first announced that they want to impeach the president.
She's publicly coming out in support. She's a jury member. The Senate acts as the jury. She's allowed to come out in support.
But I think the problem is that when you have people, it would be like if you have a normal jury. Say you have a jury for someone with murder. I know this is a little bit
right. It's a little bit of
It's a different example. Just roll with me for a second.
Yeah.
So say you have a normal case where this random person is for murder, and you have a jury member before the trial has begun who is just selected for the jury, saying, "Oh well, this person is clearly guilty. No matter what happens, I am voting that this person is guilty." Would that not be grounds to say, "Well, wait a minute, maybe this person shouldn't be on the jury because they won't listen to the case and they won't listen to any evidence that is put forth"? And that's the problem that's there, is because this has become such a partisan issue that there is no one on the Democratic side listening to any of the evidence put forth, and that they're so swayed or so locked into their own view, I should say, that no matter what is said, they are going to vote that he is guilty. And that's where I think the problem is, where they're campaigning and they're saying in their campaigns, like what Mike Bloomberg has in his most recent campaign, where he said, "Oh, in 2016, I said this man was a dangerous demagogue," or something to that effect. Forgive me if I'm quoting that incorrectly. But where you have that kind of problem, I feel like that's the problem there.
No, I completely get it. And the same thing happens with Republicans. Recently, we're in now, I think, day 4 of the Senate impeachment trial. You saw senators playing with their Apple Watches, falling asleep. Just a lot of people not paying attention because they already made up their minds. That's the thing with impeachment being partisan. Evidence was already released beforehand. The transcript was released beforehand. People knew the evidence before going into the case, right?
And I feel like there's two problems with that. One, it's become such a partisan issue, and again, the founding fathers said it would, and they were
I completely agree with you on.
They were completely correct on that. I feel like that's the biggest problem there. And two, that yes, evidence was released too early. I think with just like a normal legal proceeding, I know impeachment necessarily isn't 100% legal proceeding, but in a lot of situations it is. In a lot of instances, it can be compared to one. But you shouldn't release evidence beforehand, because that'll lead to a situation, like you said, where people just don't pay attention during the trial, and that isn't right on any side of the aisle.
No,
I think people need to pay attention, and they need to listen and have
Exactly.
an open mind on both sides of the aisle.
Right.
And I feel like that's the problem, is that everyone is so locked into their views.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's interesting that you brought up the fact that it's kind of like a real trial. It's absolutely not like a real trial. The Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, came out and said, we won't have any witnesses for this trial. I would think witnesses would be very important. When presidents make phone calls, there's a lot of people that listen into them. There's never truly a closed-door meeting. There's always someone else in the room or someone else listening. These witness testimonies, which are taken as very serious and almost as evidence, because lying to Congress is a felony,
Yes, of course.
as we saw with the Bill Clinton impeachment, these witness testimonies are almost completely vital to any case that you're going to make one way or the other. And if you're going to want these witnesses, obviously you should have an equal amount who will support each side. I think that's fair. You should have Hunter Biden testify. You should have the president, I feel like, testify to his actions. Obviously, you need to bring into evidence the transcript, the audio tape of the phone call, which was already done. Everything that's been said. You need the proper evidence. You need the proper witnesses in order to have a fair trial. Or else it's not a fair trial. It's just an opinionated debate that's not going to change anyone's mind.
That's where I feel like Mitch McConnell might necessarily not be 100% correct. I feel like I don't think they should make a sideshow out of it and have 500 witnesses from both sides to turn it into a 3-month discussion when the lines have pretty much been drawn from day one. Everyone knew where it was going to stand. From the minute it was announced, they knew yes, it's going to pass in the House, no, it's not going to pass in the Senate. Donald Trump stays in office. Everyone knew that from the minute it was going to start. And let's be real, we know what's going to happen.
It's a completely partisan issue.
We're
He's not going to
day 4 into it. We don't know how long it's going to take. At the time of filming this, we don't know how long it's going to take. I want to say that if anyone's watching this after the fact.
Oh, yeah.
But we know, unless something crazy happens, we know pretty much what's going to happen. Donald Trump's going to stay in office. This is going to go on for maybe another week or so, and everything's going to kind of go back to the status quo it was beforehand.
Listen, I entirely agree with you on that point.
I just want to say one thing real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
But I feel like that necessarily shouldn't be the case. Now, I want to say I'm in full support of the president. I support Donald Trump. I like him as a president, and I plan to vote for him in the upcoming election in November. But what I think is that it should be more like a trial. I think we should have a handful of witnesses. Again, not,
You don't need too many witnesses. Eventually, they're just going to say the same thing.
I think maybe 5 from each side would be a good number to agree on.
Well, however many is needed. Let's not put a hard number on it.
Well, I said like.
Right.
I'm just throwing that out there. 5, 10
Definite
witnesses.
testimonies you're going to want is the president,
Exactly.
Hunter Biden, maybe even Joe Biden in some case if he knew anything, the people who listened to the conversation, the people who were a part of the conversation and the decision-making that went into President Trump's decision to withhold campaign funds in exchange for political dirt.
Well, was it campaign? Was it campaign?
No,
funds?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I was completely wrong. That was something else. It was military aid.
Yeah, I was going to say
million.
campaign funds. I don't think he was campaigning in the Ukraine.
He was not. No, he doesn't need Ukraine support. I don't know how.
I mean, literally.
I don't know how the president's doing in Ukraine.
Maybe the Ukrainians like about I don't know. We should get a Ukrainian.
Oh no! Now we're going to have more charges about voter fraud, and Ukrainians are voting for our president now.
Ukraine is hacking the election. You heard it here first.
You heard it here first, folks. That's our 2020. That's our
hot
prediction.
take for 2020.
Exactly.
Ukraine hacking the election.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yes. I want to bring up an issue real quick, and you mentioned how this is going to affect the 2020 election. And I want to touch on that real quick. And you have Democratic strategist. I want to grab this paper real quick just because I want to reference the man's name, Don Calloway.
Okay.
And he said this was back in October. He said this. He said that I don't think we should impeach in general because he said, I think impeachment emboldens the deplorables and folks will come out in a way against Democrats. And I feel like that's correct because you have this where you have a base of Trump supporters that are very against impeachment. And no matter what happens, I mean, Donald Trump famously said, I could shoot someone in the middle of Times Square and I'd still get elected.
That was scary.
And you'll have that base of voters that will rally against us no matter what happens. And that's going to split party lines, not necessarily party lines for the Republicans, but it's going to split the election to a point where it can damage the Democrats.
Because the impeachment isn't about trying to get those hardcore Trump supporters.
No,
obviously this is partisan. Everybody knew that coming in.
Yes.
This impeachment trial, because it's before an election, I feel has the intention of persuading those middle ground voters more towards the Democrats, more towards saying, hey, look at this bad thing that Trump did. We don't want that. I agree that it's completely unethical and that he's not going to get removed from office. Personally, I don't. You said that getting dirt on political rivals is what politicians do.
I think every politician is guilty of it.
But it's wrong.
It's just a matter of if you get caught doing it.
And he got caught. And I think it's completely wrong. Do I think he should be removed from office? I want to see how the trial goes. I'm not going to make a
I feel like if Trump gets removed from office, I think every politician in our U.S. political system should be removed from office because I guarantee you if you look
I think an investigation should be done before everyone's elected on whether there was dirt on political rivals.
I think if you look through everyone's records in the Senate, in the House, I'm sure they did something.
But here's the deal. It's not just getting dirt on political rivals, such as looking up their previous histories and stuff like that. This is can someone else investigate this for me because they have someone working there? That's what's dirty about this. And it's stuff like that, I agree with you, is completely unethical, and no politician should ever do it. It's like if I went to a private industry that your son was working at, or that your dearest friend was working at, and I said, hey, I'm doing business with you, but I'm no longer doing business with you until you give me what I want, which is dirt on one of your employees' friends.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, though, when... I have to gather my thoughts for a second.
Take your time.
When he says dirt, all he really got was just a little bit of information on Joe Biden. And it wasn't really anything usable for the most part. And to withhold military aid, should we really be giving military aid to the Ukraine in the first place?
Well, here's the thing. That's not what this discussion is about.
It's something we shouldn't be involved in to begin with.
Right,
so
but
I don't
that's
think...
not what this discussion is about, because military aid was resumed. We were still giving it. The
No,
debate is not whether we should give military aid to Ukraine. It's what was the military aid used for? It was used as a political football for the wrong reason. Sometimes political football is okay. Hey, I want to pass gun legislature, and Republicans don't. Republicans want to pass tax reform. Democrats don't. Fine, we'll trade. We support each other's bills. That's how we get things done. That's called compromise. Our Constitution was founded on compromise. That's how this country works. But when you use it for things such as, I'm going to go to a foreign nation, I am going to withhold business from them in order to get dirt on someone else who is running against me, that is the thing of dictators. Now, when I say dictators,
I wouldn't even call that a dictatorship.
It's not a dictatorship. I'm not saying President Trump's being a dictator. What I'm saying is, it's actions that are commonly taken by those who want to withhold power. It was taken by Vladimir Putin, who got dirt on another oligarch, because Russia's basically an oligarchy, who got dirt on an oligarch who came out against him. The oligarch was charged. He was arrested because he was the only one who came out in not support of Vladimir Putin.
But I think to compare Trump to Putin, that's a little bit of a stretch.
It's
there.
complete. I'm comparing the actions. I'm not comparing the people. They're completely two separate people. I'm just saying those actions are commonly those of taken who want to control power. President Trump is in no way a dictator. This is a democracy.
And I don't think it's a matter of trying to control power. I think it's just a matter of trying to gain an advantage in a matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think he's trying to control any sense of. I mean, maybe he wants power.
Hold on.
I don't know. I'm not in his head. But to my eyes, from what I've read and what I've seen about it, I think it's just a matter of trying to gain an advantage.
Which results in more power. You have the power to gain an advantage. That's what I'm saying. I totally agree with you. Your point is exactly the same as mine.
And this might be a little bit of a controversial statement, but while I don't think the way he did it was necessarily good with withholding military aid, I don't think that was the right way to go about it. But I don't think necessarily trying to do what he did is necessarily the worst thing in the world. Because again, every politician does it. Just
because everyone doesn't make it right.
But if everyone's doing it, my point is...
So if anyone murders, then it's right? You can't do anything about it. Hey, that guy sped. Why can't I speed?
Well, everyone speeds. If you live in New Jersey and you drive the speed limit,
5 miles over,
you're getting ran into.
Yeah,
I mean,
miles,
good luck with that.
But here's the thing.
But that's not this conversation.
We have rules that need to be upheld. And I agree
but
with you.
No one upholds those rules. No politician upholds that rule. So if all he was doing, in my opinion, is playing the game that everyone else plays. And he's the one getting penalized for it. And I don't necessarily see the problem in that.
We can't make any
presumptions
that anyone else does it, because in America we have this thing called innocent until proven guilty. The president is innocent until he's proven guilty by this trial.
Well, I'm not saying we have to go out and charge every other politician with it.
Just off the suspicion that they might be doing it.
I'm just saying
not enough evidence. We have evidence that the president, especially when you're a position called the President of the United States, the chief of state, the chief executive, and 4 other roles, you're the head diplomat, and you go ahead and use your diplomat status in order to get political dirt on a rival, that's not okay. If a senator does it with a foreign country, it doesn't hold that much water because you're not the head diplomat.
So you're saying that if a senator does it, it's...
I said it's less of an issue, but it's still a problem. It's still a very big problem. I agree with you on that. I've agreed with you on that before, and I will continue to agree with you on that, that it's a problem if someone, anyone, regardless of party, that's how I opened this discussion up, uses any sort of quid pro quo, one thing for another, in order to get political dirt. You can trade, obviously in American society, we trade legislature, we play political football in order to get stuff done, but getting political dirt on any one of your rivals is the thing that people who want to control power do. It's a way to, like you said, it's a way to get an advantage, and it's unethical and it's immoral. And whether people are doing it or not,
I'm
it's
not
still
arguing
wrong.
the morality of it. I don't think it's moral. I'm just saying he's playing the game that everyone else is
So
playing.
then why not make a statement and say, hey, let's impeach the guy for being immoral? Because that's what we believe in America. It's a statement, it's a general statement that says to the American people, hey, we're not going to uphold these immoral and unethical values. This is not something that we believe in. This is not something that we want to support. So why go ahead and say, hey, what this guy did was immoral and unethical. Let's impeach him. Now, he's not going to get removed from office, and Democrats probably don't want to remove him from office because then Mike Pence takes office.
Wow.
There's no, I don't think
Well,
Mike
you
Pence
know
was
that
involved in
I was going to say they've wanted to remove him from office from day one.
Right, but
going
they're
back
not
to
trying to remove him from office.
going
They're
going
trying
all the way
impeach him
back to
change
the
his
going
numbers
all the way
to
back to the
vote him out of office.
going all the way back to the Mueller investigation. Mueller.
It's Mueller.
I can't pronounce. I'm not good with words.
It's perfect. No, I said the president wanted to gain support in Ukraine.
In Ukraine.
We're making a bunch of
He wants the
mistakes today.
Ukrainian voters. But yeah, the Mueller investigation. Going back to the Mueller
Yeah.
investigation, they were clamoring for him to be removed from office. Then the Stormy Daniels, they wanted to remove him from office. They wanted to remove him from office for so much as breathing the wrong way. So this is a logical, well, for them a logical step forward. But
yeah, you're talking their motivations,
Yeah.
in which case you're entirely right about the motivations. You're motivated to do things because you don't like someone, or you're motivated to do things out of fear. The Democrats are motivated to basically prosecute this president because they don't like him.
Yeah.
That I can agree with you on. But here's the thing, what they're prosecuting him on is what we're discussing here.
Yeah.
And I believe he's guilty of this political dirt because it's literally in the audio tapes. It's in the transcript. It's in the evidence that's already been stipulated. But the thing is, the motivation is what we do have to take into account here, and you're entirely right. But this motivation is a good thing and a bad thing because it can be abused in a way that's detrimental to this country and how it functions. If you use the motivation for a bad thing, then it's a problem. And a lot of times this motivation leads to hypocrisy. The Republicans wanted to impeach Bill Clinton for lying to Congress,
Yeah.
and now they don't want to impeach President Trump. Why? Because President Trump's a Republican, Bill Clinton's a Democrat. These political boundaries that we have.
But now
lead
we're going
to
full circle
conflicting-
back to it just being a partisan issue.
You're right, exactly. That's all this is.
But now you're just going full. Exactly.
Everything comes full circle. It's a partisan issue to the last word.
Exactly. But and let's get off this just for a quick second and go back to how it's going to affect the election.
Absolutely.
And you went back to saying, well, they're trying to sway the middle ground voters. And I feel like, and I agree with you, they are. But I feel like you'll have a lot of middle ground voters who necessarily might be fed up with the political establishment, the way it's been ran.
Everyone's fed up with the political establishment at this point.
But I'm saying a lot of them might be fed up with the political establishment, and a lot of them might be looking at it in the sense of, well, all they're doing is trying to get rid of Trump, and they've been trying to do that since day one, and a lot of people might be tired of that. And you look at the way they're campaigning, a lot of these candidates are campaigning on, let's get rid of Trump. Trump is bad. That's what a lot of their campaigns boil down
Actually,
to.
if you watch the debates, a very little bit about it is taken up by Trump, anti-Trump
No, I'm saying
propaganda.
that. No, I did watch the debates, and no, I'm not talking about the debates themselves. I'm talking about because most people are not going to sit down. I mean, the general voting public does not sit down and watch the debate. I mean, let's
Here's
be
the
real.
thing, they read what the media says.
But
And the media
exactly.
has a big part in this.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly going back to what you
and
said.
the media
Yeah.
and I'm saying their campaign ads. Again, Mike Bloomberg's most recent campaign ad, some of Elizabeth Warren's campaign ads, and some of even Bernie Sanders.
Right.
They rely on getting rid of Donald Trump as a big
I
part
feel
of
like
their
that's an
campaign
element.
ad.
I feel like that's definitely an element.
And I feel like that it can help them in certain grounds because there are certain voters that are going to say, well, we don't like Trump, so let's vote for these people because of anyone but Trump. But you're going to have the certain voters that are just disenfranchised with the obsession of the media on Donald Trump and the obsession with getting rid of him, and they'll vote for him just because they just want to spite these people. So you're going to split that, and you might see a result similar to 2016, where you'll give
People were
where
fed up with the
they'll be
establishment.
handing Donald Trump the vote because of the fact that they're obsessing on Trump in the ads and in the media outside of the debates, which most people don't watch anyway, and they're obsessing on him there and not showing what their real platform is. And I'm not trying to debate if any of them have a good platform or not, the public perception and from an outsider's perspective looking in, it looks like it's all about Trump, and that's a big problem.
It is a big problem. I agree with you on that. It's a big problem when you boil it down just to one factor. It's definitely a problem when you boil it down to one factor, and that we need to move on from that. elections need to be more about your platform, what you stand for, and what you believe, and less on the partisanship of the issue. Leave that to Congress. If you're a senator and you're running for president, fine, right? If you want to include dissing your political rival in your campaign ads, fine. It's been done before. Trump and his Obama obsession, and how Obama was so bad, and how we just wanted to get away from Obama. That was a big thing.
But see, that worked, though.
It worked, and that's what Democrats are taking. That's what Democrats are doing. They're just reversing the situation because they know it works.
But
we
see,
have to move on from that.
the reason that worked is because at the time you had a lot of people, and still a lot of people, fed up with the political establishment.
Right.
They didn't like Obama because he ran things like a normal politician, because he was a normal politician.
Right,
He was a career congressman, and then he became a president. So he ran
followed the formula.
Exactly.
People
He ran things like a normal politician.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton, who would have ran things like a normal politician, because she was the wife of Bill Clinton, who was a president, normal president.
She was
and
Secretary of State.
Exactly. She
Yeah.
would have ran things like a normal politician.
Yeah.
So he attracted those voters by saying, I'm going to go against everything these normal politicians ran for, and this is why that's good. And the reason I think he's going to gain the same voters, and possibly even a few more, is because you have people that are still getting increasingly more angry with the normal political establishment, especially with this impeachment issue, showing how partisan it is and how little there is willing for any side of the aisle to move on it.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Democrats are just doubling down on, we need to get rid of the non-political establishment and stick to our core base of Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and people like that.
The liberals don't like Bernie Sanders whatsoever.
Well, I'm saying Elizabeth Warren, and you
Yeah.
have Mike Bloomberg and people like that, Joe Biden.
Right, yeah, you got to stick to their base, and that's
But-
that's
and-
what
and that's the problem.
That's what all politicians do. They stick to their guns, they stick to their base, and that's the problem with modern society.
But that's exactly, and that's
Yeah.
a problem for them. And I feel like that's what's going to lose them a lot of votes, because they're sticking on saying, well, get rid of Trump. He's not the political establishment. People don't want the political establishment.
I never heard one politician come out and say, "I want the political establishment." Obviously, that's inferred, right?
It's strongly
It's
inferred.
strongly inferred. But here's the main argument.
Obviously,
here.
they're not going to say, I want to keep
yeah.
things the way they have been for the
No,
same
a lot of
100 years.
politicians are arguing, let's make some change. That's how you get elected. Making change is how you get elected. It's what change you make that gets you elected.
Exactly.
Now, going to what you said about the establishment, I feel like you talk a lot about the political establishment and people being career politicians. People like Trump because he wasn't a career politician.
Yes.
Right? That's why people voted for Obama in 2008. He wasn't. He didn't fit necessarily. He was young. He was different. He was new.
He was young,
Trump
but he
is
still
different.
was
He
a
was
career. He was still a career politician, though.
He was a career
having
politician,
sat
but
in,
he was way different from his opponent, John McCain.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. He was different
Same
from
thing with-
McCain.
same
He
thing
wasn't
with
as
Kennedy.
old as McCain.
There was the same thing with Kennedy versus Nixon in that election. Kennedy was a very young Democrat. Nixon was a career Republican.
Yeah.
So people oftentimes get fed up with the political establishment. People weren't satisfied for 6 years of the Obama administration doing nothing, mostly because Republicans blocked literally everything that Obama did. But that's because of the partisanship issue that we agreed on. Now, a little bit about this whole just establishment thing, right? We can use that argument all day long. But what boils down to it is whether people are satisfied with the presidency of Donald Trump and whether they believe that this issue affected them. And that's to be decided in this trial.
Yeah.
It's
I
not so much persuading the middle ground to go out and support the Democrats. It's to go and say, hey, this is what you got because of 2016. Are you satisfied with it? Let's find out. He's the fourth president to be impeached, which really says something. I mean, it says something about the state of our politics today, right? We had three impeachments actually. If you look at it throughout history, very tightly compacted, very close together. Clinton in the 90s. Now in the 2010s, we have Trump. That's 20 years between an impeachment.
Yeah, but I don't think that says necessarily a lot, because I don't want to keep resting on the same point. But I want to touch on my point again, that from the minute, not the exact minute, but from almost the minute that he was put into office, They were saying, oh, he's a Russian agent. Oh, the collusion with
Well,
Russia.
with the whole
we have to
scandal
remove
thing.
him from office. We
Yeah.
have to remove him from office because he misappropriated campaign funds, which turned into nothing. The Russian investigation turned into nothing.
Well, it was something, but it was not grounds for it.
Exactly. But my point is, you had from the minute he was put into office, and the minute from when it was campaigning, they were saying, oh, well, if he gets into office, he was colluding with Russia. So from the minute he was put in office, you had people clamoring for his removal from office. So I wouldn't say it's surprising that he was impeached or anything like that. I wouldn't say it's a statement on our modern politics.
Listen, this impeachment has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Ever since Democrats took the House, we probably knew they were going to take action against
Yeah, and when they were running for the Senate, they were saying, oh, well, if we get the House majority, we're going to impeach Donald Trump.
Right, because at the time, listen, presidents, when they take office, they always lose their approval ratings. They always plummet. And so a common thing is we're going to stop the other guy. If they see the president's approval rating go down, which I think President Trump's is now at like 38%, people are going to see, hey, what can we do to get this guy out? We don't like him.
I was
Right?
going to say, I think it's higher than 38%. I don't know the exact
The
number.
recent poll, I think, was 38%, but it was a really big dip, and it's probably just one little gap. It's probably around 40, 45.
Yeah, I thought it was around 45 most recently.
Yeah.
I don't remember what poll I read that off of, but
Regardless,
Yeah, last time I checked, it was like
regardless, it's
45.
been going.
it's
up.
been
It's been everywhere.
It-
It's been everywhere, but it's been below.
it's like
50%.
like a heart rate monitor
Yeah,
where it
it's
goes
been like that. It's
ba.
been like that. He says one thing, it goes down, everything goes back to normal.
Exactly.
And a lot of I guess is positive approval rating is that people look at the economy.
Yeah, and the economy has been
The
great.
economy has been great. Yeah, it's been great. But that's not what we're talking about.
That's a
obviously.
result of
yeah,
having
let's
a
get back on
businessman
track.
in the presidency.
Yeah. And a lot of the economy, just to clear up, isn't decided by the president. Obviously, they use fiscal policy, and then the Fed uses monetary policy. But that's a discussion for another
Yeah.
time, obviously. Back to this.
Let's not turn this
Yeah.
into a 2-hour discussion.
No, in fact, we've probably spent enough time on this. But overall, I think we can agree that impeachment is a partisan issue. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be a partisan issue. Collecting dirt on your political rivals, no matter who you are, what party you stand for, is completely unethical. And I think that's something we can agree with.
Yeah, and I think we can also agree that this entire impeachment thing has been blown way out of proportion just because of I say blown out of proportion by the media because of the fact they turn it into a ratings trap. Because you see ABC airs it on not prime time, but 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They turn it into a ratings trap. Fox News has it prime
And again,
time.
going back to the whole motivation thing, the motivation is kind of a good thing, really. Because if you look at Fox News, CNN, ABC, all those news sources,
All these news
this is
sources.
a motivation to sort of promote their own agenda, but it's also a way to sort of inform the American people.
Yeah.
But the problem is, obviously, in the media, but it's for another time, obviously. It's for another discussion, inform them on their own agendas, which kind of skews the information. But regardless, that's a discussion for another time. And I think that's all the time we have, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a great discussion with Matt here, and I'm Daniel Braile, your host, signing off from Minds of America.